Hey guys, tonight we're snuggling up to explore something that's a little bit out there. Picture this. You're wrapped in your favorite blanket, the soft hum of your fan fills the room, and your fuzzy socks are at the perfect toasty temperature. You're pretty sure you've got a sleepy dog curled up at your feet, or maybe it's a pillow pretending to be one. Dive with me into the most ridiculous laws from the Middle Ages. Trust me, you probably won't survive this without at least raising an eyebrow. Before you get too comfy, feel free to tap like or subscribe, but only if you're genuinely enjoying the calm around here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little journey reaches. Now, go ahead and lower the lights. Maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's drift gently into tonight's story together. You wake up one morning in a quaint medieval village, a place where laws seemed like an endless stream of bizarre imagination. As you meander through the cobblestone streets, your eye catches the marketplace where fishmongers haggle under the morning sun. But did you know, back then, the law could actually intervene if the fish wasn't up to scratch? Yep. The fishermen could get into real trouble if the day's catch was less than fresh. It's like leaving a negative Yelp review, but with much more dramatic consequences. Medieval authorities took freshness very seriously. Think of it as the medieval version of rating an Uber ride, only the stakes involved an actual stake, or stocks, to be more precise. Okay, so here's the wild part. These penalties didn't stop at mere scolding or fines. Sometimes, a fishmonger could be publicly humiliated if their product didn't meet the standards. Can you imagine standing in the market with everyone watching as you justify the slightly off scent of your salmon? The horror. It makes ignoring an unread email notification feel like nothing. And though not every fishmonger's tale ended with a splash, there are stories of serious repercussions like being hauled off to court. Historians still argue whether this enforcement was truly about health and safety, or if it was a quirky power play to control the bustling trade and ensure fair pricing. Regardless, the outcome of this peculiar law was that selling subpar salmon could seriously tank your medieval reputation. You were toast. Well, fish. But you get the idea. The most fascinating part might be considering how people today might react to such a situation. Imagine a TikTok about the fresh fish court effect. OMG, my salmon got me arrested. Stay tuned. It's enough to go viral quicker than your old Play Store downloads. Honestly, the Middle Ages had its own kind of drama. Maybe less digital, but often bizarrely entertaining. While munching on some medieval street food. All right, I get it. You're actually just lying in bed wondering about a sandwich. Your mind wanders further into the intricate and endlessly weird laws that define times gone by. It's like diving down one of those rabbit holes of bizarre facts while you're supposed to be working on something else. But just like that unopened work email, these laws await your curiosity, intriguing you just enough to keep you captivated. As you continue along those historic paths, scenes unfold like episodes from an enthralling period drama, a series you didn't even know you'd bookmarked. Each law, a new storyline, each penalty, a plot twist written by someone who enjoyed keeping villagers guessing and gossiping. They lived for the drama, much like we live for the comfort of fleece blankets and endlessly scrolling through endless reels like we're on a mission. Sitting back, letting the rhythm of this medieval melody lull you into a deeper sense of allure, you start to see, slowly, how each quaint law isn't just bizarre. It's a time capsule, a fragment of a jigsaw that's both familiar and foreign at the same moment. And perhaps without realizing, you've slipped deeper into this story, like gradually falling asleep while reading beneath dim fairy lights shimmering across the walls of your safe, quiet room. You stroll a little further into this medieval landscape, and nearby, you find a lively scene unfolding. A bustling market where townsfolk barter not just beans and bread, but something even more slippery: fashion. Now, here's a piece of history that might just throw you off balance. Like when you hit play on a playlist, and half the songs are remixes you swear you didn't add. So, you stride right into the heart of medieval fashion, where laws governed what you wore in ways that would send any fashionista backpedaling. You could chuckle today, considering how a royal decree back then tried to dictate the color of your socks or the length of your coat. Imagine swiping through your closet with a scroll in hand, ensuring every piece is king approved. Getting it wrong could mean more than side eyes at the court. Picture this. You're not just picking out an outfit, you're navigating a labyrinth of sumptuary laws designed to maintain the social hierarchy by keeping appearances just so. Can't have the peasantry looking too fabulous, now can we? Perhaps these ancient lawmakers had an eye for fashion forwardness, or more likely, a bizarre taste for control. Honestly, who needs policing your style when your laundry pile towers menacingly enough on its own? Here's the quirky side drape. The colors and fabrics you wore were status symbols. Velvet might have been out of reach, unless you were practically royalty. So, out came these laws, preventing someone with dreams of grandeur from donning fabrics above their perceived station. It's like being banned from wearing designer clothing, unless your bank account mirrored the extravagance. Say goodbye to that dream tuxedo or designer gown you've been eyeing in your digital cart. Historians still argue whether these sumptuary laws were genuinely successful in maintaining societal decorum, or if they simply made everyday life feel like a perpetual masquerade ball. Either way, the stage was set for a peculiar fashion parade, orchestrated by unseen hands that dictated your every stitch and drape. And imagine the frustration, kind of like when you keep switching your phone between light and dark mode, never quite happy with the ambiance. But here it was about your day-to-day livery, altering friendships by fabric choice, piecing together identities one rag at a time. The absurdity lay in trying to hem personal freedom into a tight corset of conformity, not realizing how these whims and wardrobes could unravel the delicate weave of the community. As you soak all this in, the laughter bubbles up. Oh, history, with your sense of irony sharper than a tailor's needle. There were rebels, of course, those who defied norms with a surreptitious silk or a discreetly decorative braid. Small acts of rebellion echoed whenever fashion turned oppressive, a resilient spirit that still twirls and pirouettes through the corridors of time. Listening closely, you lean back, the light fading softer, shadows extending like yawns in the aftermath of a story well told. You stretch a little, swaddled in the luxury of snug pajamas that would survive any sumptuary scrutiny, an indulgence they didn't enjoy, but somehow conveys a deep connection between then and now. Each facet of medieval life unfolds under the sleepy glow of curiosity. The absurdity of rules, long faded. The rest will loiter in your mind, like the calm static after a favorite song, reminding you, laws, just like fashion, change. As do we, with every moment, every choice, free in our tunics of choice, styles unbound by constraints, able to wave away restrictions with a distant grin, rolling back the weight of this quaint court and its strange statutes. You let the whispers of history waft over you, thinking what on earth they would make of our messy closets and mismatched socks today. Your eyes flutter, perhaps at the recognition that these tales are now woven into the quiet quilt wrapped around you, like memories or dreams, both at once. Wandering further along this cobblestone narrative, you stumble upon a scene that feels like something out of a medieval soap opera. Not quite prime time, but grabbing your attention nonetheless. Here, we're diving into the shaky world of medieval justice. Grab your gavel and powdered wig, or, in this case, a very questionable feather hat, because it's trial by ordeal time. Imagine waking up one day, surrounded by murmurs in the village square, where justice seems more a spectacle than a remedy. Trials by ordeal were all the rage, a method where fate and faith intertwined to make Galileo rolling in his grave. Water, fire, or even poisonous substances decided more fates than we probably like to imagine. Just picture it as if playing a dangerous game of Candy Crush, but with much higher stakes. So, here's you, standing before a pond, awaiting an ordeal. Everyone's watching. Pretend this is TikTok Live. The court would claim innocence or guilt based on whether you sank or floated. Could water truly tell the truth? Many believe divine intervention would ensure only the innocent survive unscathed. Dive in or walk out, much like closing the fridge hoping it'll refresh itself. One grim ordeal involved hot irons. Imagine gripping a heated bar, enduring pain. Then heal. If your burns recovered cleanly, innocence. If not, well, you're toast. And not the warm, buttery kind. Honestly, medieval justice often ran on luck that was more curious than just like hoping your phone's battery stretches another 5%. Here's where it gets interesting. Historians still argue whether these ordeals were ever taken seriously, or if this Byzantine system was more a theatrical event to placate a restless mob. It's a classic case of medieval reality TV, the ultimate ratings battle where contestants wouldn't return to the screen next episode. Some say these ordeals reflected a deep, albeit misguided faith assertion in outcomes, the equivalent of relying on magic 8-ball guidance with more at play and less humor. But here's the chuckle. Despite the chaos, people found ways to influence outcomes, much like trying to game a favorability algorithm. Secret pacts and backstage deals often skewed justice. If you were clever or well-connected, an influencer, in other words, you might manage an easier ordeal than your unfortunate neighbor. And you have to wonder, if medieval people stopped to consider the logic of hurling accusations based on floating or scalding, maybe they'd have scribbled down a different course for justice. As the leaves rustle like whispered echoes of those who've stood on trial, justice isn't always blind. It often sequentially closed both eyes in the hopes fate would fill the silence. You pause here, letting this labyrinth of lore roll around like a prayer bead in sleepy minds. Each law, a facet, an oddity swirling quietly in the soft-lit dusk of reflection. Lean back, feel the rhythm of history vibrate gently against your pillow or the side of your neck, resting against that favorite corner of your couch. Through these tales, we're erasing the edges of time, like wiping away dust on a forgotten shelf, appreciating the shapes and shadows that take form in the half-light, illustrating the absurdities humanity leaves behind. As your eyelids droop just a touch more, the ambiance of history and fiction blurs borders like pastels bleeding into each other. signaling that maybe it's time to let go. Footsteps lingering in thoughts, echoes of long-gone judgments far away. Surrendering to rest, you find the court has adjourned. The scenes decrescendo to silence, breathing like a gentle lullaby into the night, with the dreamlike haze of medieval justice still swirling in your thoughts. You find yourself drifting toward the market square again. Only this time, the aroma of freshly baked bread fills the air. Ah, the simple pleasures. But wait, even bread wasn't above the radar of the law, not back in the Middle Ages. You're suddenly walking past stalls as a vibrant debate brews over the appropriate weight and price of a loaf. A serious conversation, yet the absurd sounds a lot like arguing with your fridge to magically refill itself. In this peculiar dance of loaves and laws, the assize of bread, an official decree straight from medieval times, dictated both quality and quantity of your daily carbs. Imagine checking receipts, not just for freshness, but compliance. Perhaps a local lord eyeing your shopping basket, ensuring that those crusty rolls align with the fragile balance of wheat and whim. It's a scene that tests the patience, like living with 27 open tabs, trying to download the recipe for French toast. But here's the twist. These laws weren't just about bread. They included ale too, bubbling over like an enthusiastic barista, brewing a new latte flavor, which was an essential drink back then. Quality had to be optimal and fair, or else penalties loomed like the gravest kind of Yelp review. Historians, ever the curious souls, still debate the true intent. Some arguing these laws were more about economic control than health regulations, rooted in the politics of grain as deeply as they were consumed. Was this medieval micromanagement to avoid bread riots? Or, quite possibly, mere bakery bureaucracy taken to a much too serious extreme? Now, imagine living under watchful eyes, ensuring your baguette isn't a pennyweight too light. A challenge that might turn the calmest into a doe-eyed rebel. The cause must have been nobly intended, yet the execution makes one chuckle, smothered as it is in more crusty layers of regulations than a croissant has flaky folds. Walking past cheerfully chattering bakers, you note how this quaint regulation bore the semblance of modern-day quality checks, although with suspense that James Bond might envy. In a swirl of flour and expectation, trading regulations became an event, both baffling and binding as the medieval fabric weaves through time into today. It's here you pause, glancing at the world staged around you, feeling like you're at once an observer and a shadow of those lives long taped over by thunderous history programs rewinding through time. The scenes glow softly in the recess of dim memory, an illuminating echo outstretching through time until it meets your bedtime wonder. Sinking back into the familiar comforts of modern surrounds, the warm glow bouncing off your digital screen. These stories feel curiously familiar. They're stories of regulation, rebellion, and the oddities within everyday life that bespeak human nature's unending dance with the mundane made extraordinary. And as your eyes droop lower, your mind wonders. Bread, trials, deeds, wrapped in laws as strange as any dream shouldn't feel real, yet do. Inhaling, exhaling, and letting go, you surrender just a little further to curiosity and comfort, seeking solace within this tapestry of fables and insomniac thoughts, like flipping through old beloved fairy tales, drifting over the cusp of focus where reality meets fantasy. Each tale ends without end, leaving a trail, like breadcrumbs, through a gently sleepy landscape. Medieval folks would understand. Feeling lighter, perhaps fuller, as your quiet surroundings begin shuffling closer to the oasis of rest. Embracing each whisper, the calming lull of history, reassuring both heart and mind, you simply drift. As the scent of medieval bread fades into the background, you meander onward. The cobblestones beneath your feet warm from an afternoon sun that seems to never quite set. Your next stop is something of an ancient taboo. And oh, how whispers of forbidden knowledge flutter around it like moths to a candle's flame. Welcome to the world of outlawed books, where even a mere smudge of ink could land you in trouble. Imagine navigating a labyrinth of medieval bookshelves. Alas, not quite your neatly curated Kindle library, but with far less demarcation of what you shouldn't read. The church wielded great power over what was deemed acceptable, and knowledge was a coin silently traded along shadowed aisles. Think of it like having your secret Amazon wish list seized at the gates of a holy place, every banned title blinking verboten in bright medieval bold. In these times, the scribing of certain texts could lead you into the throes of a clandestine reader's court, with potential punishments dramatic enough to rival muting a group chat only to be called out later. Crowded within candlelit taverns, scholars whispered tales of scandalous literature. Acts like hiding banned volumes in secret hideaways were a common game of hide and seek, but with arguably more purpose than finding the last slice of pizza, you'll agree. What drew the lines? Not just heretical works, but any writing that challenged the norm, astrology, ancient philosophy, or translations not approved by the church, could all bring down sanctions like a poorly timed autocorrect. Our current notions of free speech and hit TV series seem a far leap from when a book could incite panic or piety at a heartbeat. Historians still argue over whether the rampant censorship truly rooted from fear of losing divine guidance, or was simply an elaborate scheme to solidify control. Some suggest it was about safeguarding a fragile social order, like buffering an already weak Wi-Fi signal from too much data interpretation. Against this backdrop, every crushed scroll became a victory of sorts in challenging authority, tantalizing those enough to call forth change. Today, such practices tilt dangerously close to pretentious gatekeeping, or perhaps more frequently, curiously akin to that thrilling chase for rare limited edition comic books. Though the stakes were once higher, the sentiment remains: seeking the forbidden not because it's wrong, but because it lies beyond an invisible boundary, challenging our understanding. And amidst the bickering of theologians and scholars lay a question: was this merely about intellectual property, or the imposition of moral monopoly, without the colorful bills, yet with more at stake? There you have it, an era where each forbidden syllable was a hush, a sigh, maybe even a whisper in the night that drifted beyond control. You can almost feel the soft crackle of parchment beneath fingertips, not ours, but theirs. A tether stretching across centuries as if we're all part of this endless manuscript, every page turning briefly in the tapestry of history. Letting these tangible thoughts wane, like the slow wink of a sleepy street lamp at dusk, the woven narrative darkens, but doesn't disappear completely. You linger, pondering the untold tales and carefully guarded secrets, warmed by the familiar glow of words cradled in ink and light. Books untethered from past regimes stand proudly here and now, curling deeper into your cocoon of warmth. Vibrant resonances float gently, echoing through your day's end in ambrosial harmony. Listening to the world whisper hushes, breathing in line with the quaint, quiet rooms beyond time. The stories fade into that soft-heeled rhythm of sleep. Rested, the legacy of bygone interdictions remains, and in quietude of thought, your dreams take flight toward the haven of tomorrow. Leaving the shadowy recesses of medieval forbidden tomes, you wander into yet another curious chapter of history, the kind that makes you double-take, wondering, did that really happen? Allow yourself to imagine a medieval courtroom, much like walking into a surreal legal drama. But here's the twist. The defendants aren't humans. Picture this: a local pig, shackled and standing trial for causing havoc. Yep, you're about to witness the bizarre world of medieval animal trials. You stroll up to a gathering of townspeople, their eyes wide and whispers ripe with disbelief, as the town crier prepares to announce the day's trial. A hen accused of treason, or perhaps a goat charged with property damage. It feels like stepping into an alternate reality, where the regular courtroom dramas are interspersed with livestock in the dock. Imagine trying to explain this scenario to a modern jury tasked with more tangible misdemeanors, like untangling endless phone chargers. These trials weren't staged for yucks like a circus prank. They were as earnest as the dawn sky, held in the same earnestness that one holds buckets of rainwater in a storm. Animals, seen as members of the community, were held accountable in a baffling semblance of fairness and justice, complete with legal representation. That's right, cows got lawyers. Pigeons presumed to be grain thieves had advocates. Perhaps it was a period precursor to today's widespread empathy for animals. Only the means were ludicrous to our modern sensibilities. Historians continue to debate whether these proceedings were sincere manifestations of humanity's connection to nature, a sideshow spectacle meant for distraction, or a bizarre exercise of societal power. Were these trials simply entertainment, a communal sigh amidst trials of the ordinary kind? Or something deeper, a socio-political lesson perhaps? Like watching the day's viral video, they held a mirror up to human values, reflecting concerns beyond mere jurisprudence. And here's a chuckle-worthy twist. If found guilty, these animals might face sentences from the comedic to the grim, from extra feed as penance to, we dare admit, the ultimate rooster roasting, if you catch my drift. Such decisions led to community feasts or fervent debates about the ethics of assigning blame to creatures merely partaking in their own instinctive dances. Now, let's imagine this kind of trial conducted on a modern platform, live streamed with emojis flying. It would, no doubt, break the internet. While today's animal rights thoughts circle different conversations, the remnants of these trials echo in our cultural heritage, poking us to reconsider ethics, justice, or the hat of absurdity perched undoubtedly askew. You feel the cool breeze carry off the odd sound of these temporal bailiffs filing away another untold animal verdict, leaving behind a world puzzled and amused. The parade of creatures' stories whisks you away, like videos collecting likes and comments long after first airing. Lessons tucked away cleverly behind true tales that we digest as we would a comfortably odd fantasy on a rainy afternoon. Back in the here and now, your chair creaks softly as you shift, remembering every detail extraordinary only because we see history's kaleidoscope through the modern lens. Turning inward, towards dreams, your own menagerie of thoughts slips into tune with the last echoes of their medieval gavels. Dim lights cradle tonight's obscure stories, lulled at the edge of attention, guiding you softly into slumber. The cadence of time eases as your thoughts wade into shallow streams of sleep, releasing wedges of tension echoing back from curious chronicles. Dimly heard, the medieval menagerie fades. Soft waves unbreak against shores of rest, ebbing artfully away like footprints in sand. In peace, you're gently cradled by dreams anew, each one sparked by nocturnal tales of the inconceivably quaint. As the narrative of medieval animal trials gently fades into your sleepy peripheral, you find the cobblestone path diverting towards something unexpectedly, yet considerably more intimate: the plumbing predicaments of the Middle Ages. Now, let's be honest here. The topic of historical sanitation might not sound glamorous, but there's a peculiar charm in discovering how people handled the logistics of daily life, long before the marvels of modern plumbing. Picture yourself wandering through a village, winding through narrow lanes lined with half-timbered houses, the air tinged with earthy autumn leaves and, well, other earthy smells. Dotted along, outhouses stand like sentinels of relief, tasked with handling the village's business, both serious and scatological. Here, laws about waste management were more essential than you might think. Maintaining hygiene before the scientific merit of washing hands was fully appreciated. Imagine the gong farmers, medieval sanitation workers who toiled by moonlight, tasked with clearing out privies, an occupation as unpleasant as ignoring all your app notifications until they overflow. But seriously, these folks were crucial. Without them, you'd have a health crisis that feels just about as appealing as a Monday morning without coffee. Here's where things get oddly specific. A law to prevent construction overhanging a neighbor's property, curbing waste disposal right onto unsuspecting heads below. It's not quite the same as living above a noisy neighbor, but you get the idea. People back then invented peculiar rules to steer clear of cross-property grievances, whether intentional or by accident. A sort of early urban planning, albeit with greater emphasis on dodging garbage rather than aesthetically efficient designs. Historians still argue whether these regulations sprung from genuine public health concerns or were just pragmatic solutions, appeasing societies where concerns literally piled up if not managed. Was it truly about sanitation, or perhaps a rather pragmatic approach to maintain neighborly peace? Deciphering the practical nature of these ordinances reveals a situational irony captured innocuously under the guise of medieval municipal management 101. Now, imagine that concept today. A civic duty meeting, strange ordinances, not quite clean your inbox campaign, but still worth considering as darkly comedic social science. Picture fair trade, where reciprocity wasn't just customary, but more about environmental responsibility, both newfangled in their truest essence. As you amble thoughtfully through these rustic relics, images drift in like soft, warm embers, illuminating how something as mundane as waste disposal can tell tales. The intricate, icky details tethered folks together in uncomfortable solidarity, much like we all share the peculiar comfort of shared public memes today. The narrative of waste, as human as it gets, passes through the filters of today like strains of an unorthodox song lodged between irony and empathy. It's the fleeting sigh after a hearty laugh at the unpredictable ingenuity of people from any era, juggling needs and necessities in the thin line between slight chaos and simple sustenance. You find yourself smiling slightly, wrapped in warm thoughts of both the practicality and peculiarity of human endeavors, now sliding effortlessly over history's age-old depictions into mindful repose. Slowly, like a dimming lantern in an old friend's tavern. The medieval panorama drifts towards the night's veil, masked by tones of starlit serenity. An invisible thread, binding thoughts and themes, carries you along these quiet paths towards slumber's gentle embrace, coaxing a tranquil nod into a restful canvas. And with that, as you relinquish today, shadows of past lives taper towards languid hues of rest, drawing a comfortingly textured blanket over weary limbs, secured softly by rhythmic surges of sleep. From the echoes of medieval waste to the whispering arches of curfews, your historical journey takes another leisurely turn. It's not quite the clang of a curfew bell that you recognize, but rather the gentle nudge of evening pulling at your eyelids, much like a dog tugging at its leash, eager for a sleepy stroll through memory lane. In the Middle Ages, curfews were more than just a bedtime reminder. They were a tapestry of intrigue and obligation, woven tighter than a Sunday roast. You can almost hear it, a bell tolling softly, marking the hour when townsfolk must douse their fires and retreat into their homes. It wasn't just a suggestion, it was law. Picture the bustling energy of a medieval town, all forced to hush at a bell's simple refrain. The medieval curfew governed life much like setting 5 alarms with the sincere intention to wake up, though knowing you'll snooze past half of them. Night falls, and wandering the streets post-curfew becomes a daredevil's task, meant only for those needing moonlit trysts or up to naughty escapades. Imagined in hushed tones that sound like old wives' tales, the idea was solid. Limit evening misdeeds and the spread of conflagrations in a time when insurance meant swearing pacts with fate and neighbors alike. As if containing people under the shared curfew, canopy could keep chaos at bay. Historians still debate the true spark behind these rigorous constraints. Were they about protecting the village peace, or were they merely a regimen of social control, ensuring the order remained intact? It rings similar to debates today about tangible limits on screen time, whether for our own good or society's structured grip. The funny part is, alerts of these curfews echo the pang of secretly rebellious hearts, the ones who'd surely sneak out, tiptoeing among alibis like dancing shadows, tethering night with wonder. All akin to hiring a night owl hacker sneaking in under system maintenance, midnight updates. Spontaneity, perhaps, ever mocking time's naive cradle. You chuckle to yourself, thinking about how this antiquated notion of collective bedtime reminds us of elementary school sleepovers full of whispered giggles, post lights out. It's a blend of carefree mischief and commanding the world to pause while secrets unfurl under makeshift tents. Drifting deeper into these meditative riffs of curfew, you sense the rhythms of community sway like lullabies in history's pulse. In hushed village squares, sparks soared towards a shared starlit ceiling, sending fireflies of stories perpetually adrift in time's coursing current, each unending as they remain forgotten. Slipping back into the comfort of your blanket and pillow, you wonder about the tales born from shared twilights, probably intended to watch over each other, while also offering subtle warmth of camaraderie. These shades of control and curiosity quiver on the midnight threshold, nudging us towards balance, arranged like notes in a melodious succession, becoming more than the sum. As the realm of evening slowly gives in upon itself, like a surreal filter on what sleep shall dream, you're guided gently by this curfew concert. Hearts long calmed by history's embrace stretch tepidly, yet yearning outward from the bounds of thought, slipping imperceptibly and entirely forward into a darling, undivided rest. As the nocturnal chorus of medieval curfews fades away, you find yourself wandering into the ever-enigmatic world of love, where the tangled nuptials of medieval marriage laws come into play. It's a chapter wrapped in the scent of softened rose petals, carrying the sweet yet bewildering echo of vows as intricate as lace, full of provisions that would make a contract lawyer sigh with delight or despair. Picture a quaint village chapel, candlelit, serene yet bustling with the whispers of betrothal. These weren't simply matters of the heart. Marriage in the Middle Ages involved complex legislation that would boggle the mind, akin to deciphering terms and conditions no one reads but everyone agrees to. Imagine getting tangled in binding agreements, not just of love, but of lineage, lands, and loyalties. Welcome to the medieval romance. Now, here's a quirky tidbit. Some places required engagement announcements for 3 Sundays prior to the wedding, an early form of the save the date, ensured not through fancy calligraphy on paper, but as a proclamation during church service. These announcements served as both Tinder profile and background check, ensuring no secrets skulked away in shadows, unseen by prying eyes. Marriage, then, wasn't just about finding the one who made your heart skip. It was exquisitely political. Families maneuvered with the subtlety of chess grandmasters, ensuring unions benefited the clan prosperously. A union might hinge upon currency of sheep rather than the heart, a notion as strange as assessing relationship goals through likes and shares rather than true affinity. Historians still argue whether these medieval marital maneuvers were cleverly crafted strategies of social stability or oppressive impositions constraining individual liberties. Who truly benefited, the couple or the kingdom? Did contracts gilded in affection submit to economy or vice versa? But here's the moment that might tickle your fancy in modern relativity. Clandestine marriages, where true love attempted to elope the binds of formality, leading lovers down secret paths. Romeo and Juliet aren't alone in their hurried vows. Such divisions of heart and titles existed, stories fluttering like moths around familial flames, ultimately layered into folklore. Picture it, fleeing by moonlight, escaping heavy-handed accords. Couples sealed their promises in witness unknown save for the stars. Today's reality shows might pale against the day-long chases those lovers undertook for simply holding hands beneath the firmament. Wills of yesteryear inscribed across society's parchment, a romance executed in reality's tenacious dances, pilfered from every day, yet imprinted like modern retellings in love's lexicon. Floating in these silken threads of time's tapestry, you find comfort in the curious parallels, recognizing how love, in its pure form, cleaves coherently throughout eras. Each binding clause, each tender pledge inscribed deeply into sleepy hearts, resounding softly as gentle reminders of bridges built upon sighs shared in moonlight. The nighttime stories exude calm as you sink back into the plush edges of your bed cocoon, your thoughts tenderly swayed by echoes of romance entwined with regulations. Drifting between awake and asleep, you wonder how far love reaches to bridge the divide of centuries and creeds. The silent songs resonating in every glance crossed and promise spoken, lulled by celestial symphonies within. Gently rocking in rhythmic time, you imagine hearts cradled by chance, encounters forming veils and garlands sheltered under history's continuum. Soft murmurs articulate the sacred vows, echoing on winds aloft and tenderly touching the edge of nighttime's canvas, where dreams softly take their leave. As the whispers of medieval love drift away, you find yourself drawn into the resounding laughter and antics within the royal court. A place where not just laws, but fools reign supreme with an invincible jest. Welcome to the world of jesters, where the lines between folly and wisdom were as blurred as the vision of someone who just forgot their reading glasses somewhere amidst the organized chaos of their life. Picture it, a medieval court gathering where nobles sit in their finery, goblets in hand, watching the jester captivate the room. The jester, a symbol of frivolity and an agent of chaos, danced along the razor-thin edge separating humor from insolence. Their role was to entertain, but more than that, to speak truths otherwise unsaid. It was like being the unexpected viral meme that spoke truth to power in a way nobody could ignore. Have you ever thought about using humor as a tool, an escape from the grip of convention? Medieval jesters wielded this tool adroitly, their pointed jokes often carrying more weight than the most serious speeches. Imagine the pressure. Imagine swinging wisecracks before kings and courts, much like threading jokes at a dinner party, hoping they land just right rather than falling into awkward silence. Interestingly, jesters were afforded a curious freedom. They could mock the powerful and live to joke another day. They were the original icons breaking fourth walls, their quips ricocheting off gilded ceilings, echoing truths with laughter's embrace. You see, jesters held a peculiar place where truth and performance coalesced, a kind of medieval paradox, no less. Historians still wonder why jesters were given such liberty. Was it because they provided a social release valve, offering the court a way to laugh at its own absurdity? Or perhaps they were tolerated precisely because the humor they offered was so disarming that it became indispensable. Think of it. These jesters likely operated like a Twitter account, lighting up funny truths, albeit in their own time's circuitry of cheer. The quip of a jester might lead to a change more profound than a political manifesto. And yet, they remained enigmatically footloose, unharmed by the otherwise deadly tango of saying too much. Here's a thought for a modern twist. Jesters are like those witty notifications you swipe past on a semi-boring day, capturing your attention and making you giggle at strange but revealing observations. They offer insight masked in entertainment, their essence transcending time boundaries, a timelessness that whispers in every sarcastic remark told over coffee or typed through a nimbly roaming cursor. Imagining the dance between jesters and their lordly audience, you can almost hear the dull hum punctuated occasionally by a burst of laughter, a soundscape of a living court. Each jest, like a fleeting moment of clarity amidst the thick fog of protocol, lingers quietly, before vanishing with a grin, just as dusk turns into a gentle shroud. Nestled in the soft cocoon of blankets, like the comfort of a well-timed joke on a challenging day, you let the whimsical antics playfully tickle your mind in quiet delight. Every hearty chuckle fades slowly into the night, a soft serenade harmonizing with the pause between heartbeats. As you sink softly into a dream meant for kings and queens, the jester's lively dance curls around your consciousness, easing it towards rest. Thoughts release their grasp, floating like colorful scarves on the tailwind of laughter shared, quietly calling you into a peaceful world beyond the jest, where solace lies awaiting tenderly within. As the sounds of jesters' laughter drift into the distance, your footfalls find a quieter path pointed towards another peculiar yet profoundly amusing realm. It's the echoes of paws and claws, the soft padding of feet, not human, but no less present in the medieval tapestry. The unexpected tales of dogs finding themselves embroiled in the legal whims of medieval courts. Picture a tranquil village morning, where a buzz of excitement nudges everyone toward the town square. Here, a canine stands accused, probably maintaining a dignified or bemused air as it awaits judgment. You can't help but stifle a chuckle, imagining the very notion of a dog on trial, eyes wide with innocent imploration, a quizzical tilt to the head. It's like that guilty look your dog gives when you catch them on a Zoom call, chewing something that definitely wasn't a chew toy. The reality of such trials sounds as ridiculous as it is entertaining. Animals, especially dogs, were sometimes held accountable for their actions, much like a game of blame tag gone wildly off course. If an animal caused harm or disruption, a collapsed barn or a bitten healer, it wasn't uncommon to see them hauled into court. Their paw prints inked funnily onto the medieval justice system like an overly complex board game with confounding rules. Historians remain puzzled, continually circling the reason these animal trials took place. Was it an effort to describe justice as all-encompassing? Or were these judicial antics merely illustrating wider moral tales to the largely illiterate public? Were they just drunkenly light-hearted affairs? Or was something deeper at play? The quirky side note here: most convicted animals, including dogs, wouldn't face execution. Instead, they'd sometimes get second chances, banishment, or even ownership change to exert reformation. Doggy rehabilitation, medieval style. There's something oddly heartening about such outcomes. A deep-seated kindness wrapped in the riddle volume of history. Imagine sharing these tales over breakfast, the hilarity mirrored in others' amusement, sparking parallels with absurd house rules we all often concoct. In an era where neighborly warmth was intricately woven into daily exchanges, these peculiar court tales must have quickened lively conversations over gatherings. Think of it, the mischief tarnishing these pawed offenders. Their stories fancifully dissected, similar to a trending video where ethics blur into entertainment in nimble shapes and tweets. Visioning those furry foes turned curious cohorts, you're charmed by their place in the chronology of collective laughter. Captured within those who cherish simple giggles, the stories punctuate their commonplace. These tales go bounding over centuries like a puppy chasing the ripples of dawn across fields of history. Their quaint essentials tugging gently at your amusement. Within these embroidered chronicles, the warm tingling of laughter's afterglow insulates your thoughts, comfort wrapping you like a much-loved, time-worn quilt. Letting delicate wisps of hilarity linger as you relax, the lines between now and then blur, releasing a last pause into the ether, easing slowly toward the slumber ahead. With each rhythmic breath, the gentle echoes of an era and its farcical follies gradually recede, bound for horizon hills, slipping faintly as the curls of laughter tuck you in tenderly. At this moment, embraced by soft yawns, a restful respite coaxes you deeper, settling with synchronized reverence. You transcend these whimsical courts, waltzing into slumber's hall where dreams quiver in shadows, softly kissing night. As the humorous image of canine defendants fades into the velvety night, your steps weave into the oddly captivating chapter of medieval taxes, an illustrious tapestry of bewildering levies and dues that would make even the savviest of modern accountants do a double take. Welcome to a world where eyebrows were taxed and windows levied. It's like encountering an invoice for every sigh you've ever heaved or every fleeting glance from the corner of your eye. Imagine walking through a bustling medieval street where shopkeepers tally their sums with quills, busy behind small counters. The topic? Taxes that seem to cling to every aspect of life as intensively as playlist recommendations clinging to the last guilty pleasure you streamed. From beards to chimneys, the bizarre scope of these taxes reach deep into medieval pockets, or, as some might say, dungeon-worthy depths. Would you pay up, or would your lack of payment get you thrown into the stocks like an iMessage forever left undelivered? One of the more eyebrow-raising taxes, literally, was the beard tax. Yes, you heard that right. In some places, the length and style of one's beard involved a fee, machine-like prophecy guarding against fashion excess from the beard kingdom. It's like being told for every social media filter or beard oil application, only with an official seal instead of a barrage of likes. But here's where the laughter emerges. Taxing those windows, England, not shy of inventive levies, introduced window taxes, which meant every framed opening could lighten your wallet. This curious decision darkened many an abode, leaving some dwellings stunted amid architectural gloom, a literal taxation on enlightenment. Historians still wonder whether these taxes were purely for revenue or a cleverly disguised effort to conserve materials during leaner times. The absurdity doesn't end here. Imagine coughing up money for the number of pets or haggling over extra fees based on your belt size. Considering fake news headlines on a medieval bulletin board, it all sounds like a financial pantomime well ahead of its digital age equivalent. A fiscal fever dream, leapfrogging rational bounds. Wander through these taxes as though examining a quirky bestseller in a dim-lit corner bookstore, the kind you never knew you needed. Each tax holds a promise of surplus stories, woven with strange vicissitudes, mingling playfulness and bewildering logic. Admire the dogged determination of those historical officers collecting their dues. Bitter smiles hid behind duty's stern visage. The echoes of bell-stricken conversations reveal humor, bearing down heavily amidst pragmatic measures in every taxed pigment seen. Like a ticklish itch you can never quite trace, the stories now wrap around you warmly, intertwining with the broad motif of curious histories. In all this, consider mascots of ingenuity assembling beyond fiscal practicality, disguised beneath economics and hilarity merged anew. With every glance at this past spectacle, you peer deeper into humanity's endless dance with stipulation, retained in echoes that softly sidle away into sleep's embrace, lovingly reminiscing how every sounded from history grows warm, wafting towards the coziness of your cocoon of fabric and thought. Unable to stifle a gentle, meandering smile, diverse taxes melt away, yielding to soothing tranquility. Their final footsteps rise like powdered echoes clinging softly against dream's fragile ascent. Each tax, tale, and tangential chuckle unfolding serenely into quietude. The fading beats, harbored inside remnants of untold laughter, swaddle gently, inviting your presence profoundly into the night. There, the mysteries untangle as rest soothes unsettled beats with rhythmic solace. Trudging onward from the quirky landscape of medieval taxes, you find yourself immersed in the sanctified walls of the medieval church, a gigantic presence with its own brand of peculiar directives. Imagine walking into an awe-inspiring cathedral, the air thick with incense, and whispered prayers echoing through the arches. The church held power unlike any institution of its time, dictating rules that often reached as improbably into daily life as Wi-Fi signals reaching your favorite corner of the couch. Back then, the church wasn't just a place of worship. It was the governing body of morality, and, quite literally, the law of the land. There were rules for living, rules for loving, and rules for brewing ales. Yes, even your tankard was under ecclesiastical scrutiny. It's akin to having your morning coffee policed by divine decree. Though blessed with a dash of humor, these decrees persuaded, dictated, and sometimes confounded. Take, for instance, the mandate on fasting. During certain times of the year, many foods were banned, not merely for spiritual discipline, but also as an inadvertent exercise in culinary creativity. More fish than fowl, less beef than brunch. An intriguing justification to get creative when opening your medieval fridge. It turns out, giving up meat birthed a whole new regard for eggs and layers of nutritious broths. The kind of innovation that prompts you to Google how to spice up basic ramen at 3 a.m., only with less noodles and slightly more piety. Historians still debate whether the vast web of church policies enforced was a bid to maintain social order, solidify power, or something in between. Ideals of paradise, sin, virtue, and obedience were interwoven through such doctrines, creating a gravity that nudged believers along paths righteous, or simply confusing, much like a hazy GPS, recalibrating through life's backroads. Among the more quirky church laws, one had to do with sermon lengths. Some laws dictated that if a priest droned on beyond a certain time, a gong would sound to bring the sermon to a close. That's a far cry from the polite shuffling of feet or the endless refresh of a video buffering midpoint. Imagine divine signals saying, "You've made your point." You might feel an odd kinship with the character of Brother Deacon Quietus, determinatively ferrying chimes to signal a talkative monk's conclusion, imagining it fondly echoing the audibly kind chime that reminds you to stretch and take a break. The church's jurisdiction extended far beyond liturgy, as procedural as it was pervasive. Touching upon societal fibers, we now glean through stories rich and embroidered deeply into time's fabric. It's like the dark mode of history, subdued yet resonant, simultaneously hiding and revealing, a reverent allure that commands attention. Drifting into deeper imaginings, these stories of church laws and choir nuances settle soothingly around your shoulders, bearing you towards a place where the past slumbers softly within the echoes of old steeples, resonating under starry nightscapes. Warm in your bed, listening to the murmuring winds, invisible lullabies escort secret shadows from devout eras, long surrendered to gentle forgetfulness. Resting peacefully, answers dins quietly blend with unknown, blossoming deeply into sweet repose, cradled warmly within. Softly, ineffable thoughts ruminate, bearing gently forth every unknown into open oceans of dreams, curling rambunctiously like tides in evolution, gently reclining toward morning's gentle luminescence. Emerging from the echoes of ecclesiastical edicts, you find yourself drifting into the curious corridors of papal decrees, those sturdy pillars upon which medieval life often swayed. Errant winds of doctrine carrying the echoes of divine whispers. Picture it. Lofty papers penned in Vatican ink, traveling far to reach the everyday arms of a humble village scribe. The papal edicts were like an incoming email from a global authority, except dated with wax seals and demanding reverence that set the medieval world abuzz. Now, here's where things take a delightful turn. Papal decrees weren't limited merely to grand theological topics. They covered a plethora of subjects, from the ordinary to the ostentatious, entwining the spiritual with the societal. It's like sifting through a mix of spam and gold in your inbox. Some messages brilliantly necessary, others less so, yet each carved into the foundational expectation of communities separated by pews and oceans. Take, for instance, the decree about ferrets. Yep, there was a time when owning a ferret sparked debate due to their tenuous connection with hunting, and thus their place in society's fabric. These whimsical creatures found themselves subjects of holy letters, echoing a curious attempt to regulate life's more playful aspects. Imagine bidding adieu to your TikTok-ready ferret in a world laden with papal significance. It's a sign of the times, after all, when even your pet could be part of a papal edict. Historians still puzzle over the intentions behind such specific intercessions. Were these inklings meant as divine flexes, or merely to mend the frayed social threads unraveled at the hem of abundant belief and various pursuits? What seemed saintly yet satirical thrived within sanctioned scripts, neatly archived within the annals of papacy's ebb. Plunge deeper into these holy mandates, and you find whimsical nuances balanced alongside suspected truth, decreeing the manner of Easter eggs, or chronicling how bell rings might puncture the sacred silence. Holy doctrines bubbling gently against a layer of curious laughter that warms like cocoa on a chilly eve. And here's the kicker. The papacy once ruled on the improbable issue of deciding when New Year's Day should rightly be. Yes, time itself could be subject to decree, as if scrolling between Gregorian calendar settings, switching days like playlists in medieval devotion. Discovering a whole world in the interplay of time's solemn growth and sidelong simplicity gravitates fondly toward imagination. In today's light, we might chuckle at the secular determination of seasonal greetings and marked festivities, examining this ongoing orchestrated waltz within our modern grace. Sentiments gently fondling each perennial whisper, seeds of deference sown subtly within the meditational prayer-like rhythms of self-caring warmth. Letting go, wrapping yourself snugly within your quilted reality, you feel these edicts amusingly yet grandly, slipping like whispered wishes upon invisible parchment, coalesced by sleep's soft vigilance and drawn inward. Here, where the hum of slumber echoes, dreams carve open wondrous paths toward the hidden dance of echoed laughter nestled within inexplicable comfort. As you heart slips contentedly into satisfaction's cradle, marvels of fervent charm unfurl in steps deliberate yet gentle, threading the echoes of the past with each deepening breath. Quietly surrendering the remaining tendrils of history, you glide into the night. In dreams, past and future weave seamlessly, fine threads binding ancient decree with the marvels of serene repose, an inseparable lullaby carrying you to the warm embrace of restful haven found. As the last echoes of papal decrees fade, leaving behind a trail of quiet wonder, you find yourself gently nudging into the peculiar realm of medieval rights and wrongs, a world where the very concept of justice seemed to be swaying like a candle's flame in the wind, intricate and often absurd. Picture a bustling medieval village, where the clang of blacksmiths' hammers mingles with the lively chatter of villagers. Here, the idea of right and wrong wasn't just black and white, but rather a tapestry of vivid, sometimes conflicting hues. At the heart of this tapestry lay laws that were as bewildering as they were entertaining. In a time when communal living was deeply intertwined with one's very survival, offenses could range from the mundane to the bizarre. It was like living under a perpetual set of house rules, with community norms mandating every wink and whisper, each rule reflecting society's quirky dance with morality. Imagine your neighborhood association taking a keen interest in the length of your meals or the height of your hedges, amplified by a factor known only to history itself. Take, for instance, the rule about not baking bread on certain days. Yes, even bread, our delicious, crusty friend, found itself at the center of legislative curiosity. Whether it was to control grain supplies or enforce piety, the intention remains muddled, much like clarifying whether the term coffee referred to all morning beverages or just the sacred bean. It's akin to time traveling back to spot check suspiciously delicious smells emerging on non-designated baking days. A humorous nod to nosy neighbors of lore. Historians still argue whether enforcing these laws was genuinely about promoting harmony or wielded as a lever of control, an irresistible tool for those in power to press upon society's delicate balance. It's the timeless question of rules. Are they guidelines for living peacefully or mechanisms of undue power play? And here's where you have to chuckle. Laws that extended to not just daily life, but dreams and imaginings. Some communities sought to control dream interpretation, maintaining that landscapes visited while asleep fell within their jurisdiction. You can almost picture the scene. Villagers swapping tales of dreams, debating under moonlit skies the hidden meanings, all while mindful of lurking overseers symbolically ready to interpret your nocturnal fantasies. In today's world, where the boundaries of right and wrong are as diverse as a viral trend or the latest meme on offer, it's grounding to see reflections of our own ongoing dialogue sewn into medieval hues. The perennial quest for justice, fairness, and balanced living continues, as relevant now as it ever was, simply through the curiously skewed lens of medieval convention. Drifting comfortably through these tales, you find a whimsical kinship with those long-gone communities. The very fabric of society, cast in loops and knots of intricate legality, folds now gently over right and wrong, over time, so tenderly as to ease and assure, much like tucking words secretly in beside comforter seams. Your senses soften, lulled by the rhythmic hum of ancient laws now whispered across the quiet chamber of your thoughts. As you slide deeper into the cocoon of rest, listen to the echoes becoming hushed and serene, each blending seamlessly into the comforting embrace of the night. The lore of the past closes sweetly, guiding you into dreams adorned with stories told by countless hearts before you, woven tenderly into the cascading silence of a well-deserved, gentle sleep.